Hey everyone, Cynics here, and it's time for some more anatomy quick tips. In the last video, I asked you guys for some suggestions on what body part I should do next, and you guys had some good ideas that you wanted to see, but I think I picked the one you guys need the most. And that is, of course, knees. So today I'm going to be teaching you guys to better draw knees from imagination. The first thing we got to do is go over the structure, and it's not too complicated. I'm sure you understand the basics of what a knee is. You got your thigh bone, you got your two lower leg bones, and then you got that little patella kneecap sitting on top, which usually likes to hang out more with the upper thigh bone than those boring lower bones. So that's all very basic, but I hope by the end of this video you're able to identify someone's left or right leg just by looking at their kneecap. That's my goal. And I'm going to do that by showing you guys all the subtle little curves and angles that make up the knee joint. Now that I've reminded you just what a knee looks like, let's go over some of the most common mistakes I see when people are drawing knees. Definitely the most common mistake is people making the leg in general too symmetrical. So they'll have a very tapered, symmetrical top of the leg. They'll have a very boxed knee, which doesn't have any angle to it. And everything will just continue down the leg and be very symmetrical. And either side could be mirrored and it'll look identical. The other main problem I see is people simply ignoring the knee. They'll draw a leg from the side view and simply have a straight line going all the way up from top to bottom. Or they might draw a leg that's bent and not show any of the structure of the kneecap at all. So hopefully we'll be able to fix these problems and you guys will start making nice asymmetrical legs with kneecaps that stick out in all the right places and a good structure that will give your legs lots of personality. And to do that, we're going to have to talk a little bit about relationships. Now, when I say relationships, I'm referring to the relationships between different shapes and how these things will make up a visual library for anatomy. And the relationships you build in your head will actually determine your own shape language. But for these purposes, in this video, I'm just going to show you my own personal relationships and shape language. So you can see the kneecaps are basically box shapes, except we angled them a little bit, so the top of the box is actually pointing inward just a little bit toward the center line of the body. The other main factor is just going to be how the thigh curves around and how the calf curves around. So for the thigh, you're going to see the interior side, that's the side closest to the center line of the body, is actually going to curve around a bit lower than the exterior side. And when it comes to the bottom calf, you're going to kind of follow those lines a little bit. The interior curve is going to be a bit lower. It's going to start a bit lower. It's going to apex a bit lower. And the exterior line is going to curve a bit higher. So the apex of that curve is going to be a bit higher. Okay, now that all sounded a bit confusing, but hopefully the picture is worth 1,000 of my rambling words. I guess this is a good little refresher on the fact that things tend to look more organic when you have offset curves versus looking very non-organic if everything's very symmetrical and the curves line up perfectly. But anyway, let me quickly mention the side view of the leg, and you can see here that the curve on the back of the leg tends to curve in a bit higher up than the front where you have the kneecap and everything. So that means that the curve of the calf muscle can actually be a little bit higher than the bottom of the kneecap. I don't know, it's a bit up to you, but I like to make it a little bit higher than the bottom of the kneecap. Next up, I just want to mention reductions, and if you remember from the last video, this basically is just my way of summing up how we stylize things. So you can see here, I start with a more realistic knee and just simplify, simplify, simplify until it's basically just an open box on an angle with some different offset curves going on. And the same thing goes for the side of the knee. Obviously, if you're going to stylize it and reduce it in different ways, you can choose what to showcase. Sometimes you might want to make the knees a bit knobbier, and that might be your style. I don't know, you're going to find out what works for you, but these are basic ways to reduce the shape language. You can see how knowing anatomy will help improve even the most stylized and cartoony looking drawings. Anyway, let's have a little bit of fun. So, personally, when I'm getting carried away with anatomy, I start seeing all kinds of weird structures inside the anatomy. So, for instance, a bent up knee from the side might look a little bit like a cockpit from a spaceship. Maybe even the front view looks a bit like it could be a whole spaceship. But these things give me a lot of inspiration, so it's kind of fun to just get carried away and let your imagination run around. It's also fun to just add a lot more personality and dimensions to your kneecaps and everything, because I'm keeping it very simple for this little video, but there's a whole bunch of knobs and little, angles and creases that are actually there that I'm not really getting into. So I recommend exploring it on your own time. Just be careful. Sometimes I get a bit carried away with my kneecaps, and eventually I'll summon my vestigial twin brother, whom I like to call Nissan. But you gotta watch out for him. He's a bit of a creeper. Anyway, as Nissan always tells me, just have fun with your anatomy. Wait, and work on your lines as well, because it's always good to get those nice swoopy tapered lines going on. It will help everything look a lot more organic. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing on the menu, which is of course coloring. So I won't go super in depth on the whole coloring aspect, but some of the things to remember when you're painting away. You can bring a little more redness in on the kneecap. Obviously, it's a wear and tear area. Also get some sun. And the thigh might be a little bit more pale if you want to bring in some hue variations. And let's see, what else can we do? You can bring in a lot of good gradients going on, coming in and out. I feel like that's the main thing to work on. Work on your stroke directions and your gradients, and making those gradients fold into other gradients, as I've talked about before. But just basic skin tone stuff. And you can bring in a little bit of higher value when you have bones that are very close to the surface of the skin, such as the kneecap. So you can get that little bit of redness, a little bit of higher value. And hopefully, if you play around with it enough, it'll look kind of fun. And once again, colors can give you a lot of fun personality to your knees as well. So we're doing so much with knees today. I like it. And hopefully you guys have been paying enough attention throughout this video to be able to recognize which knees are on the right legs and which are on the left legs. Now, if you need a quick recap on the old kneecap, just remember that the top of it would angle toward the interior center line of the body, and as well as the thigh, the whole muscle of the thigh, it comes down a bit lower on the interior side and it's a bit higher on the exterior side. So these things should always be telling you which leg the knee is on. So as I've mentioned before, the best way to coagulate all the knowledge you've learned on a subject is to try animating with it. So you can see here, I'm going to try to animate a knee bending completely flat, and I'll do it from the side view and from the front view as well. Might as well just have a little fun with it. And you can see here that the kneecap actually likes to hang on to the upper part of the leg a little bit. So it gives you that nice blockiness when you actually fold up your knee completely. So hopefully doing these little animations will help out. And I hope this was a fun video, and I hope you guys learned a little bit more about knees. I know I certainly did when I was making it. So I think that's gonna do it for this episode. Be sure to leave your comments below as to which anatomy part you guys would like to see in the next quick tips video. And as always, thanks to my wonderful patrons for helping support these videos. You guys are great. And thanks to everyone else for watching.